Am I audible to all of you? Am I audible? Okay. Okay. We are discussing the topic nutrition and health. Yesterday we discussed about the elements, more than 50 elements they are present in our body, and these elements we divided into three categories: major minerals, trace elements, and trace contaminants. As far as major minerals are concerned, only five examples are there. It's calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, and phosphorus. From trace elements, iron, iodine, fluorine, okay, copper, cobalt, chromium. In addition, there is manganese, molybdenum, silicon, selenium, nickel, vanadium. Okay, as far as trace contaminants is concerned, you are supposed to know they do not have any known function in our body. Still, we can find it includes aluminium, barium, boron, plumbum, that is lead or mercury. Clinically important are all five major minerals, plus to that list you can add iron, iodine, fluorine. There are several functions of the calcium. In short, we will quickly revise it. Calcium, it is required for formation of bones and teeth. Calcium, it helps in blood clotting. It is required for conversion of prothrombin to thrombin. Calcium, it plays important role in neuromuscular excitation. Then we said calcium is required for release of neurotransmitters from the storage vesicles. Bones, they are the storehouse of the calcium, and it helps to maintain the calcium level in case if there is a deficiency. This calcium, it also helps in milk production. Most important function, it is required for contraction of muscles, which includes contraction of skeletal muscles, smooth muscles, and cardiac muscles. Another important thing, calcium, it plays important role as far as the chemical or electrical messages are concerned, which arrives to the cell membrane. This is transmitted to the inside of the cell with the help of calcium. Another important thing, as far as vision is concerned, calcium, it is required for conversion of light impulse to electrical impulse. Then we said the most important function, again you should not forget, is the neuromuscular system. Okay, neuromuscular excitation, formation of bones and teeth, and there are still other functions. Regarding sources, I think yesterday we talked about milk and milk products. So on the top of your list, the richest source, it should include both things, that is milk as well as milk products. Okay, so here you can enlist different milk products. Okay, even we have seen the comparison given by K Park as far as calcium content of human milk is concerned and cow's milk is concerned. Okay, so K Park has only mentioned this comparison, and from this what we can conclude, cow's milk is a rich source of calcium as compared to human milk. Then we are supposed to discuss the other sources. Okay, so as far as other sources of calcium is concerned, in addition to milk products, you can mention eggs, fish, they also contain calcium. Okay, and regarding vegetable sources or regarding plant sources, the most important sources, it includes green leafy vegetables. It includes green leafy vegetables. If you can recall, vitamin A, for vitamin A also we discussed this. Green leafy vegetables are one of the important sources for calcium also. It further includes spinach, amaranth, fenugreek. It includes drumstick leaves. Okay, So whatever different leafy vegetables we take in our diet, it can provide calcium. If you talk about cereals and millets, okay, if you talk first about cereals, we'll talk about cereals. As far as calcium content and cereals is concerned, the rice is deficient, okay, rice is deficient, and as compared to rice, wheat is good source for calcium. So don't forget, as far as calcium and rice is concerned, in cereals, rice is deficient in calcium. Pulses, they are also good source for this calcium, but we'll pay special attention to millets. Okay, we'll pay special attention to millets, and I hope now whenever I will say this word, you should be able to recall that millets, it includes jowar, bajra and ragi. So right now we are talking about jowar, bajra and ragi. Out of this, the rich source for calcium is ragi. Okay, so don't forget ragi, it is the नाचणी. Okay, ragi म्हणजे नाचणी. This is rich in calcium. Okay, so 100 grams of ragi, it can provide about, we are talking about consumption of 100 grams of ragi, which can provide about 344 milligrams of calcium. Okay, so again, values are not given by K Park. No need to memorize these values. Just try to understand that among millets, ragi is one of the good source for calcium. Okay, if we talk about fruits, okay, again here the rich fruit you are supposed to know, and this is custard apple. This is custard apple. Okay, sitafal. Custard apple, again, it is very good source. So if 100 grams of custard apple is consumed, it may provide up to 800 milligrams of calcium. So there are fruits, vegetables, cereals, millets, pulses, but most important is milk and milk products. So your answer should begin with milk and milk products, and then you can mention the remaining sources for calcium. Now we'll proceed further to absorption of calcium. Okay, now one thing already you know, it is very clear as far as absorption of calcium is concerned, the factor which can enhance, we are talking about the factor enhancing calcium absorption, and the factor which enhance is vitamin D. Okay, don't forget, this is active form of vitamin D. So vitamin D, it enhances, or rather it helps in absorption of calcium from intestine. Okay, so definitely this is something good for our body. Now try to understand the other aspect. What we said, the green leafy vegetables, they are good sources for calcium. Okay, so whenever we consume green leafy vegetables, our body will get calcium, but at the same time, you are supposed to know regarding absorption of calcium which we are getting from leafy vegetables, or if we are getting it from cereals. Okay, so here whenever we consume leafy vegetables, majority of leafy vegetable, they contains oxalate. Okay, they contains oxalate, or simply you can say oxalic acid. Okay, we are talking about leafy vegetables. Whenever we are consuming leafy vegetables, so they are containing oxalate or oxalic acid, and the rich source for oxalate, rather we can't say it as source, but maximum amount of oxalate you can find in leafy vegetables like आळू माहिती आहे तुम्हाला सगळ्यांना, आळूची जी वडी केली जाते, सो दॅट आळू, आय डोंट नो इंग्लिश वर्ड फॉर दिस, बट दॅट इज रिच इन ऑक्झालेट. ओके, so whenever we consume leafy vegetables, the oxalate which is present in these leafy vegetables, it combines with calcium. Okay, and when it combines with calcium, it forms insoluble compound or insoluble complex, and since it is insoluble, it is not absorbed in our body. So along with oxalate, calcium won't get absorbed in the body, and the compound which is formed here is known as calcium oxalate. Okay, so this is the thing that is related with the absorption of calcium which is present in leafy vegetable, how it will be inhibited, or what can be the limiting factor for absorption of calcium. So absorption of calcium, limiting factor one is oxalate, and second it is phytate. It is phytate or phytic acid. So phytate, it is mainly present in the cereals. Okay, so same way, like calcium and oxalate, we get insoluble compound. Here also the phytate, they will combine with calcium and they form insoluble compound, that is calcium phytate. Okay, so we can get calcium phytate which is insoluble, which is not absorbed. Okay, so regarding absorption, you are supposed to know the factors which enhances its absorption and the factors which can inhibit or which can limit absorption of calcium. As far as enhancing factor is concerned, we talked about vitamin D, and as far as limiting factor is concerned, here you are supposed to know about oxalates and phytates. Okay, oxalates from leafy vegetables and phytates we generally get it in cereals. Regarding a daily requirement of calcium for infants, the daily requirement is 500. We are talking about infants, it is 500 milligram, okay, per day. Since we are saying daily, this is per day. Okay, for adults and children, it is same, that is 600 milligram. Okay, but if you talk about the boys and girls who are between 10 to 17 years, or we can say teenagers or adolescents, they are having increased demand of calcium. This is about 800 milligram per day. Okay, so for infants we said this is 500 milligram. For adults as well as for children, this is 600 milligram, and for the boys and girls between 10 to 17 years, this is 800 milligram. Now you are supposed to know another physiological conditions, pregnancy and lactation. So definitely the demand of calcium during pregnancy and lactation is great, it is increased. Okay, and almost it is double as far as adult demand is concerned. So during pregnancy and lactation, 1200 milligram per day. Okay, 1200 milligram per day is the requirement, and same requirement is there during lactation period. Okay, so calcium demand is doubled during pregnancy and lactation. So this is the basic to understand here. As far as deficiency of calcium is concerned, calcium deficiency, one keyword that you should not forget if question is asked, it's tetany. Okay, again, don't keep any confusion between tetanus infectious disease and tetany deficiency disorder. Here we are talking about severe calcium deficiency which can result in tetany. Sometimes there can be even osteoporosis also. Okay, so here this image will show you some signs and symptoms related with calcium deficiency, but here try to correlate calcium deficiency as what we said, key one of the important factor which controls absorption of the calcium or which is essential for calcium absorption is vitamin D. Okay, so few authors they have mentioned rickets and osteomalacia, but try to understand rickets and osteomalacia, since you may get deficiency of vitamin D, and vitamin D deficiency can further lead to calcium deficiency. Okay, So here try to understand one practical aspect that is related with the calcium deficiency. So what we said regarding the balance of the calcium. Okay, yesterday we have talked about this. The calcium balance, it is maintained in our body with the help of three important factors. Out of that, vitamin D is one thing regarding which we right now talked, and second thing we said about parathyroid hormone. Okay, we said about parathyroid hormone. So you should know what is the link with this hormone as far as calcium deficiency is concerned. Okay, so the endocrinal disorder, which we can call it as hypoparathyroidism. Now we are talking about hypoparathyroidism. Hypoparathyroidism, it may occur due to various reasons. Sometimes it may be idiopathic also, genetic also, it can be autoimmune also, or even it can occur following surgery. Okay, so whenever there is hypoparathyroidism, this hypoparathyroidism will get reflected as hypocalcemia. Okay, so calcium level of the blood will be reduced, and this may get manifested as tetany. Already we have talked about tetany. Okay, then there can be spasms. Okay, regarding spasms we'll talk right now. Okay, there can be corpopedal spasm, or even if there is acute condition or acute hypoparathyroidism, patient may complain of tingling of lips or tingling of hands. At the same time, if condition becomes chronic, then a patient may develop caries of the teeth, or there can be a brittleness of fingernails, or even there can be hair loss. So out of this, the most important thing is spasm. Now see, if our intention is to identify the latent tetany, okay, so we are not having a manifestation of tetany, okay, and if we are suspecting that serum calcium level of patient is low. Okay, so there are two important clinical tests that simply you can perform. Okay, we will have short discussion about this test since this is practically related point. Okay, so here what you can see is Trousseau sign. See, we are talking about latent tetany. Okay, so here Trousseau sign, what we are supposed to do in this sign, or how you can elicit this sign in your patient. Okay, so for this what you will require is a sphygmomanometer. Okay, so we should have to take a sphygmomanometer, then inflate the cuff. The cuff, it is inflated 20 mm of Hg above the systolic blood pressure. So raise the cuff till systolic blood pressure, raise it above 20 mm of Hg. Okay, keep it inflated for 3 to 5 minutes. Keep it inflated for 3 to 5 minutes. Now what happens? There is brachial ischemia. Okay, we are creating occlusion of the brachial artery. Okay, so whenever the ischemia is there, it increases irritability of the nerves. Okay, and when the nerves get irritated, you can find these manifestation what you can see in this image. Now pay attention to the wrist. Okay, so what you can observe, wrist is flexed. You can see flexion of the wrist. Even you can see flexion at metacarpophalangeal joints. Okay, observe MP joints, you can find flexion at these joints also. If you carefully observe interphalangeal joints, what you can observe here, there is extension. There is extension of this joint, and pay attention to thumb, it is showing adduction. Okay, so this is the carpal spasm which we have produced. Okay, so this is one of the important sign that helps in identification of latent tetany. Okay, Trousseau sign. There is one more sign which is less important. This is a chopstick sign. Okay. Now, as shown in the image, what we are supposed to do, just we are supposed to tap the skin over the facial nerve. Okay. So, tapping of the skin over the facial nerve, and this is about 2 centimeter anterior to the external auditory meatus. We are supposed to tap. Now, what positive findings you can get here? You can see on the same side, that is on the ipsilateral side, you can find contraction of facial muscles. So, facial muscles gets contracted when we tap the facial nerve, and this is just again because of irritation of the facial nerve. Okay, so here first you should have to pay attention to the angle of the mouth, then you can pay attention to the nose, and then you can pay attention to the other facial muscles. Okay, so what you can observe is twitching. What you can observe is twitching. So twitching initially, it basically there is grading depending upon the calcium level. So initially you should have to pay attention towards angle of mouth, then you can pay attention to the nose, then you can pay attention to the eye and other facial muscles. Okay, but as far as Chopstick sign is concerned, you may find there are about 10% of the population, even if they are having normal calcium level, they can show this sign. So most important sign is Trossow's sign. So attention should be paid to Trossow's sign. Okay, so this is the practical aspect that is related with the tetany, how we can identify latent tetany in our clinic without any lab investigation. Okay, now we will proceed further to next element, phosphorus, or next mineral, phosphorus. Now if you see the adult human body content of phosphorus, it is 400 to 700 grams. Okay, so about 400 to 700 grams of phosphorus we can find in adult human body. Okay, the phosphorus which is present in human body, it is present in the form of phosphates. Okay, and whatever total amount is present, about 80% of phosphorus, it is present in bones and it is present in teeth. As far as functions of phosphorus is concerned, phosphorus is essential for formation of bones and teeth. Okay, so that's what we said initially, 80% of phosphorus, it is present in bones and teeth. And if you want to give title, you can say function of phosphorus, it is required or it is essential for formation of bones and teeth. In addition, phosphorus, it also helps to maintain acid base balance. Phosphorus, it also helps to maintain acid base balance. Regarding sources of phosphorus, we can get phosphorus from different foods. It includes both animal foods as well as plant foods. From animal foods, it is fish, meat, eggs, milk. Okay, and from plant foods, it includes pulses, cereals, it includes different vegetable foods. Okay, now as far as the phosphorus content of vegetable foods is concerned, in vegetable foods, phosphorus, it is combined with the phytin. Okay, we can find the combined form, and phosphorus is combined with phytin. Now what happens, as the phosphorus or free phosphorus is not available, our body can get only 40 to 60% which is available in these food articles. Okay, so just combined form of phytin which is present, combined form of phosphorus in the form of phytin which is present in vegetable foods. That is the additional point to know as far as absorption of phosphorus is concerned. What is daily requirement of phosphorus? As far as daily requirement of phosphorus is concerned, phosphorus requirement have not taken into consideration by World Health Organization or Food and Agricultural Organization committees. Okay, but still, what expert group suggested that phosphorus intake should be equal to calcium intake. Okay, it should be equal to calcium intake, and if you refer to other sources, on an average we can say this is about 0.8 to 1 gram which is required daily. Okay, but 0.8 to 1 gram is not the figure given by KPARC. So what KPARC statements are there, it is in front of you. So the daily requirement has not considered by WHO, it is not considered by FAO committees. As per recommendation given by expert group, we are supposed to take the calcium intake and phosphorus intake which should be same. Okay, equal intake. Before going to sodium, let's talk about the deficiency of phosphorus. Again, practical aspect. As far as dietary deficiency of phosphorus is concerned, dietary deficiency of phosphorus, it can lead to a condition called as hypophosphatemia. So simple thing, the phosphorus level will get reduced. Okay, hypophosphatemia, and this further may result in anorexia, or it can cause muscle weakness, or patient may complain of pains in muscles or bones. So it is very simple thing, whenever these things are reduced in our diet, it may get reflected on musculoskeletal system. So there can be muscle weakness, or there can be muscle pains, or there can be bone pains. This is about deficiency related with the phosphorus. Now just permit me to end this meeting. I will start it again. Am I audible? Am I audible to all of you? Okay. These are less important topic as far as your exams is concerned. So I'm going little bit fast. Okay. So let's talk about sodium. Adult human body, it contains about 100 grams of sodium, and this sodium, it is present in different body fluids, and it is widely distributed in extracellular fluid. Okay, so sodium, it is widely distributed in extracellular fluid. As far as functions of sodium is concerned, it plays important role in acid base balance. Okay, it helps to maintain ECF volume. It helps to maintain extracellular fluid volume, and in addition, sodium maintains excitability of muscles as well as nerves. Okay, so it is important for maintaining excitability of nerves and muscles. Regarding sources of sodium we can get almost from all food articles. Okay, but one of the important thing which we generally use in our diet, it is common salt, or it is table salt, or you may call it as sodium chloride. Okay, so another important thing is NaCl, or sodium chloride, or table salt, or common salt. Now it is important to understand how sodium is lost from our body. Okay, so generally, physiologically, it is lost from the body through urine and through sweat. Okay, through urine and through sweat. And whatever urinary excretion of sodium is there, it is regulated by kidney. Okay, so what we said, 100 grams of sodium we can find in our body. It is present in body fluids. It is widely distributed in extracellular fluid. Sodium, it is required for acid base balance. It maintains ECF volume. It helps to maintain excitability of nerves and muscles. From different food articles we can get sodium. Additional thing regarding sodium, you are supposed to know table salt or use of common salt. Its excretion, it is excreted from the urine, or it is excreted from the sweat. Okay, and regulating factor is kidney. As far as requirement of sodium is concerned, sodium requirement, it depends on various factors. So one of the factor is climate. So certain climatic conditions are there. It will depend upon the occupation, and it will depend upon the physical activity. Okay, as far as requirement of sodium is given by KPARC, the value is 5 grams per day. Okay, value is 5 grams per day. And in addition, we are supposed to know that if dietary intake of sodium, it exceeds 10 gram per day, it has definitive tendency to raise the blood pressure. Okay, so this is the most important thing regarding sodium that you should not forget, is hypertension or elevation of blood pressure. Okay, sodium depletion. Now, whenever sodium depletion occurs, it may result in muscle cramps. Okay, we are talking about sodium depletion. Okay, so the same thing you can say that whenever sodium depletion is there, the sodium level of in the blood, it will get reduced, and you may call it as hypo, excuse me, you may call it as hyponatremia. Okay, so what happens? There is excess loss of sodium. Okay, now excess loss of sodium, it result in hyponatremia. Okay, commonest manifestation is muscle cramps. Okay, so we will see what are the causes. So what are the various things that can cause excessive loss of sodium from our body? There are so many causes, but just common causes I will enlist here. Okay, so we are talking about a sodium depletion, or we are talking about excessive loss of sodium leading to hyponatremia. Okay, so few causes are enlisted in front of you, okay, which you can correlate with the medicine. So it can be Addison's disease, it is chronic pyelonephritis, it is acute tubular necrosis, or the most important thing is the last. Okay, so even if there is severe sweating, okay, or there is severe diarrhea, it can cause excess loss of sodium, or it can cause sodium depletion. So these are the common things as far as sodium loss is concerned. Okay, we said severe diarrhea or severe sweating. Okay, or even the burn patients, okay, they may show sodium depletion. As far as drugs is concerned, diuretic drugs. Okay, now here, though it is allopathy part, you are supposed to know this. Diuretics drugs, basically these are the drugs that promote excretion of sodium as well as water through urine. Okay, so whenever the person, they are taking diuretics drugs, you may get sodium depletion. Okay, there is possibility of sodium depletion in these patients. Okay, commonest manifestation is muscle cramp. Okay, it may result in muscle cramp. At the same time, patient may show hypotension. Okay, so blood pressure of your patient may be reduced, right? So just common things I will repeat: depletion of sodium or loss of sodium. Common causes for this is severe diarrhea, severe sweating, or even in burn cases it may occur. And clinically, patient may develop muscle cramps, okay, or there can be hypotension. Now there is another possibility, as we said, excess loss of sodium can occur. Similarly, sodium excess can occur. Okay, so sodium level in the blood, it may get increased. Okay, so this condition we call it as hypernatremia. So now we are talking about hypernatremia. Okay, so hypernatremia you can see in different kidney diseases. Okay, like there can be glomerulonephritis, or don't forget occurrence of hypernatremia in patients with heart failure, okay, or congestive cardiac failure. And one more cause can be there related with the administration of intravenous fluids. So excess administration of normal saline, even it can contribute to hypernatremia. Okay, elevated level of sodium in the blood, common causes is renal cause and cardiac cause. Okay, how this gets reflected? So whenever there is hypernatremia, there will be rise in blood pressure, and your patient may show edema. Okay, rise in blood pressure and edema. So here you can give dietary advice of salt restriction. Now as you know, table salt or common salt which we are consuming in our day to day diet. Okay, so in such situation, wherever there is hypernatremia, whenever there is excess of sodium which is present in the blood, so that time your dietary advice should focus on restriction of common salt or table salt or sodium chloride. Yeah, so that's what we discussed. Whenever there is sodium accumulation, it ultimately causes accumulation of both sodium and water, and excess sodium retention in the body it may lead to edema or it may lead to hypertension. Now here you are supposed to know there is strong relationship between hypertension and dietary salt intake which is observed. Okay, so there are different types of studies, research studies that you are going to study in detail in epidemiology, but right now we can say there is significant association between the two conditions. One is dietary salt intake and hypertension. So don't forget hypertension and salt. Even in NCDs, non-communicable diseases, hypertension, the first risk factor you might have studied in relation to the salt consumption. Okay, so to summarize, for sodium, we said about 100 gram of sodium which is present in the body. Okay, widely it is distributed in extracellular fluid. It is essential for acid-base balance, for neuromuscular excitability. Okay, don't forget table salt as a source for sodium. In addition, we discussed about hyponatremia and hypernatremia. Whenever patients of hyponatremia come to you, common complaint will be related with muscle cramp, and on examination you can come to know about reduction in blood pressure. Opposite thing, hypernatremia, okay, rise in blood pressure, and since you get hypernatremia in CCF renal diseases, edema is the commonest thing. Another important element is potassium. Okay, so as far as potassium is concerned, adult human body, it contains about 250 grams of potassium. So we can find 250 grams of potassium in adults. Okay, regarding sources, it is widely present in different food articles, so you can take different names, but I would just like to enlist 2-3 important sources for potassium here. It is coconut water, it is banana, okay, orange and nuts. Okay, banana is a very good source for potassium, so don't forget these common things related with the source of potassium. Okay, so as we said here, it is widely present in different foodstuffs, so there is little likelihood of deficiency of potassium. Before going to depletion, just talk about the function of the potassium. So functions related with the potassium are, it is required for acid base balance. Potassium, it is required for electrolyte balance. It is required for fluid balance. And as we said, for sodium, same function is here for potassium. Potassium, it is required for maintenance of neuromuscular activity, or you can say neuronal activity and muscular activity. Okay, so various balances are there, including acid base, fluid, electrolyte balance, which is maintained by the potassium, and potassium further requires for proper activity of muscles and nerves. Now regarding depletion, the causes are there. Whenever potassium depletion occurs, you can call this condition as hypokalemia. Okay, so basically the symbol here you can see is K, so that is kalium. Okay, in relation to that, the terminology is hypokalemia. Okay, we are talking about potassium depletion. Okay, so before going to potassium depletion, you are supposed to know what is the normal serum potassium level. Okay, we are talking about normal serum potassium level. The normal serum potassium level is between 3.5 to 5 milliequivalents per liter. Okay, 3.5 to 5 milliequivalents per liter. Now whenever we are talking about depletion or hypokalemia, when the value is less than when the value is less than 3 milliequivalents per liter. When the value is less than 3 milliequivalents per liter, we can call this condition as hypokalemia. Okay, so there are few causes that are mentioned here. If you correlate this with endocrine system, adrenocortical dysfunction, Cushing's disease, okay. Another cause which is mentioned here is loss of potassium through GIT. It can occur in diarrhea, okay. And the third thing is prolonged use of diuretics, okay. Diuretics, right now we said, these are the drugs which promote excretion of sodium and water. Now, if your renal physiology is very clear and exchange is very clear, you can come to know simultaneously potassium is also lost. And to be specifically, these are the loop diuretics. Basically, diuretics are of 3 different types. So, out of that, whatever loop diuretics are there, or those who have listened the name of furosemide, okay. So, furosemide is loop diuretic which can cause loss of potassium. Okay, so this is adrenal cause. This is related with the drug where you can find hypokalemia. And common thing again, don't forget severe diarrhea. In addition to severe diarrhea, potassium depletion, it can occur even if there is severe sweating or there is severe vomiting. Okay, so severe vomiting, severe diarrhea and severe sweating are the common things, okay, which can contribute to potassium depletion. Okay, how this is manifested? So what are the various clinical features of potassium depletion? Again, same thing, muscle weakness. The commonest complaint will be muscular weakness, okay. Even there can be lethargy, and in addition patient may show hypotension or even arrhythmias. Okay, so potassium is very important element which may cause some dangerous effects as far as its level is concerned. If it is not maintained normally, either if it is decreased or even if it is elevated. Okay, so right now what we said, as far as hypokalemia is concerned, it can cause muscle weakness, it can cause lethargy, it can cause hypotension, or even it can cause arrhythmias. Okay, cardiac arrhythmias can also occur. Okay, so again here you can see highlighted thing, whenever decreased level of potassium in the body is seen, it leads to muscular cramps. Okay, common things, muscle cramps. Yeah. Another important thing is whenever there is low dietary intake of potassium have been implicated in etiology of hypertension. Okay, so study is going on. I won't comment anything on this particular aspect right now, but just talk about excess of potassium. Okay, now we said hypokalemia है तो muscle weakness है, lethargy है, arrhythmias है. Now what can happen if there is excess level? Okay, so excess level of potassium in the blood, you can call it as hyperkalemia. Okay, now we are talking about hyperkalemia. And hyperkalemia, definitely it is a dangerous thing, because hyperkalemia, it may result in heart block, it can cause cardiac arrhythmias, or even it can cause cardiac arrest. You may say heart block or cardiac arrest or cardiac arrhythmias. Okay, there is reduced contractility of the heart. And as we said, this condition may prove fatal, as it is leading to heart block, it is leading to cardiac arrhythmias. Okay, definitely this can be dangerous thing. Okay, so hyperkalemia, most danger thing. In which cases you can get hyperkalemia? Basically, these are the cases of renal failure. So, if there is a severe renal failure, there can be hyperkalemia, which may get manifested by various cardiac features. Okay, so there can be either cardiac arrest or there can be heart block. In addition, in relation to muscles, there can be paralysis of skeletal muscles. Okay, so skeletal muscles may get paralyzed due to hyperkalemia. So these are all conditions that are related with the hyperkalemia. Okay, so regarding potassium, just to revise quickly, we said 250 gram of potassium we can find in adult human body. Coconut water, banana, orange and nuts are the important or common sources, that's what we can say. But potassium we can obtain from various foodstuffs, and that's why deficiency is not commonly seen. Okay, deficiency is not commonly seen. It is required for acid base balance, it is required for fluid and electrolyte balance, it is required for maintenance of muscular and neuronal activity. Okay, regarding normal range, we said 3.5 to 5 milli equivalent per liter. 3 से कम है तो we will call it as hypokalemia. Hypokalemia, common things which can cause hypokalemia is severe sweating, severe diarrhea, severe vomiting, and the consumption of loop diuretics drugs. Okay, common manifestation, important manifestation of hypokalemia is muscle weakness or lethargy or hypotension. On the other side, patients with renal failure may have hyperkalemia. The value for hyperkalemia is above 5. If it is more than 5 milliequivalent per liter, we call it as hyperkalemia. Okay, so which can cause cardiac damage. Okay, it can cause heart block or it can cause cardiac arrest. Okay, and this condition may be fatal. So this is the dangerous condition as far as hyperkalemia is concerned. Regarding magnesium, adult human body, it contains about 25 gram of magnesium. Out of this, 50% magnesium, it is present in the skeleton. It is present in the skeleton, and magnesium we can find in all body cells. Just half minute. Magnesium, it is required for normal metabolism of calcium and potassium. As far as other function is concerned, in many enzyme actions, magnesium acts as cofactor. Okay, on arrow in different reactions, you might have mentioned Mg2 plus. Okay, so it is playing important role in various enzyme action as cofactor. It is further required for synthesis of fatty acids. Okay, I will request to CR to start with the attendance. Hmm. Bhag- Bhagyashree is present. Hmm. Raise your hands. Raise your hands, please. Okay, okay.